Following the previous part, the unexpected event known as the 7th grade bullying incident became a hot topic and was known by the upper grade students after school. The senior class bulletin board was filled with discussions about the upcoming promotion test for the 7th graders. A red-haired girl focused intently ahead. She quietly realized that Chiron didn't want to trouble her, so he decided to keep the matter hidden. Quickly, Amy's anger flared up, her rage seemingly capable of setting the entire academy ablaze. However, her orange-haired friend reminded her that such reckless behavior could harm her reputation. So, Amy reconsidered her actions. Nevertheless, she secretly made her way to Chiron's place. In no time, she infiltrated Chiron's dormitory window. Surprisingly, Sienna was there as well. The three of them ended up having tea and discussing the situation together. The main issue was the upcoming promotion test, which involved teleportation magic, a very dangerous spell for someone like Chiron who wasn't adept at using magic yet. To explain further, teleportation magic is related to light magic. It utilizes light, referred to as absolute speed. Although it operates at the speed of light, this spell can only achieve 1/100th of that speed. Additionally, the photonic energy of the human body is significantly reduced, making it extremely dangerous if mishandled. More importantly, the test was to take place in a valley between two mountain peaks. Another concern was the competitive nature of the students, making conflicts inevitable, with Chiron likely being a primary target for the 7th graders. Sienna wanted to guide Chiron through this test, but Amy immediately objected, stating that a judge intervening with the contestants was unfair. Amy decided she would teach Chiron instead. However, Sienna pointed out that Amy might not have enough time to train Chiron due to her upcoming promotion exams. These exams were almost at the level of professional wizards and were becoming increasingly difficult. Amy hadn't chosen to take the promotion exam at this age lightly. She was in a rush because Chiron had been advancing rapidly and was close to catching up to her in just a few months. Thus, both Amy and Sienna vied to teach Chiron. Ultimately, they left the decision to Chiron. Unexpectedly, Chiron decided to study on his own, leaving both girls stunned. He chose this path for fairness and out of respect for Amy. He knew she had an important exam coming up and didn't want to burden her. Hearing Chiron's heartfelt words, Amy fell silent. Our protagonist truly had a sharp tongue. Sienna, understanding Chiron's sentiment, also left, reminding him to be careful in the upcoming test. Finally, Amy and Chiron were alone. Amy quickly asked Chiron why he had been avoiding her. Chiron bluntly replied that he didn't want to be separated from her. More profoundly, Chiron always saw her as a goal. Seeing her name on the board had ignited a fire in him to surpass Amy. Amy pondered for a moment, realizing everything felt like fate, a destiny that had brought them together despite their different starting points. To lighten the mood, she reminded Chiron that if he wanted to compete fairly, he should stop calling her senior. As soon as she finished her sentence, Chiron called her by her first name, leaving her astonished. He declared that he would catch up to her soon. Amy only smiled and disappeared into the starry night. There was 1 month left to prepare for the brutal exam. The scene shifted to Chiron as he diligently worked on mastering teleportation magic. While other students hired tutors, Chiron chose to study the principles of the spell on his own. He found himself struggling with the complex theories and was on the verge of giving up. Reflecting on the situation, he recalled the principal's words from 5 years ago, which might hold the answer he was seeking. Elsewhere, the young heir of the Slider Mark conglomerate had almost mastered teleportation magic. It came easily to him because his family's wealth had allowed them to hire a private tutor. Before long, he was poised to ace the upcoming test. But what about our protagonist? After uncovering the intricacies of the spell's theory, Chiron needed to practice. Expanding his field of perception, a green light enveloped him. To use this spell, he had to dematerialize his body. Quickly, he succeeded in the first step of photonization, causing his body to emit light and photons. The next step was movement, which distorted the scenery around him. As time passed, his injuries accumulated due to the nature of the spell. Each fall led to adjustments, and day by day, he repeated this process until the day before the test. Finally, Chiron successfully teleported without any errors. As he closed his eyes after his first success, hidden truths began to unfold. Meanwhile, Maria, a purple-haired girl, was wandering alone after school when the unpleasant Mark approached her. He immediately started berating her with harsh words. Maria tried to ignore him by wishing him success in the upcoming test. However, he revealed that he knew she had informed the teachers about Chiron's situation. This shocked Maria, causing her to reveal her guilt unintentionally. This confirmation was all Mark needed. He merely threatened her, which was enough to make her collapse in tears. Despite her tears, the test could not be postponed. A crowd had already gathered, some eager to see who would advance, others just for entertainment. The contestants were nervous, their breaths heavy with anticipation. In contrast, our protagonist was lost in his dreams. Amy noticed Chiron's absence and wondered if he had given up because he couldn't master teleportation magic. The test was about to begin. From a distance, the danger of the challenge was evident. Suspended ropes stretched between two mountain peaks. To ensure the safety of those not ready for this deadly test, the teacher advised any unprepared students to withdraw. The greatest danger, however, came from the overconfident students. As the teacher called everyone to gather, a familiar figure rushed in, Chiron, still bearing the injuries from his training. Since the test had to start on time, Ms. Athela couldn't assist him. As Chiron reached the starting line, he fell into a trap set by the 7th graders. Sweat poured down his body, but it couldn't deter someone as extraordinary as him. And so, the test officially began. With the sound of the starting gun, all the students took off. However, this test wasn't about speed alone, knowing the precise jump points was crucial. As they neared the cliff, the leading groups leaped ahead, with others following close behind. Finally, only Chiron remained. He took a unique path, diving straight into the ravine, astonishing everyone watching. Chiron utilized gravity and the thrust from his teleportation magic to surge ahead, taking the lead. The atmosphere of the test was more electrifying than ever. In contrast, a dark cloud loomed over Maria. The pressure from her family's expectations and her fear of being bullied weighed heavily on her. But none of that compared to her resolve not to let the obnoxious Mark pass the test. Returning to the competition, after some time, the race divided into 3 groups. The leading group consisted of Chiron and Mark, followed by a group 3 meters behind them. The last group included those who started the race too early out of fear and couldn't keep up. Because of their premature effort, they began to fall into the ravine. It wasn't that the teachers abandoned them, the school had prepared jet systems below to ensure they landed safely. Gradually, the middle group started to give up as well, leaving only the leading group in the race. Chiron didn't let his guard down and continued to accelerate, gradually widening the gap. Seeing the situation worsening, Mark decided to implement his plan. He ordered his subordinate to rush ahead and block Chiron. Instantly, the lackey appeared right in front of Chiron. With his quick reflexes, Chiron avoided the worst-case scenario but lost his rhythm and fell. However, as the protagonist, Chiron couldn't end there. He quickly reactivated his field of perception and chased after Mark. The spectators noticed this, and Chiron was soon galloping like a horse, catching up to Mark. Unexpectedly, a level 10 maze appeared before them. The principal immediately ordered the test to stop. Mr. Thad, understanding the situation, rushed to the control room. Just as he touched the door, he sensed someone behind it. A familiar voice responded. It was a girl he once mentored. Her bright demeanor had faded due to the daily pessimism she endured, and now Mark threatened her last glimmer of hope. This was the end of the road for her. Hearing Maria's thoughts, Mr. Thad understood and told her the test had stopped. Back with Chiron, the signal for the test's halt was clear. But both knew that if either stopped, it would be considered a give-up. The explosive signal meant both of them plunged into the maze. Inside, they were surrounded by vines and mechanisms, but they didn't retreat, each driven by the desire to see who would go the farthest. But was the test's transformation Mark's doing? Returning to Maria, her questions echoed the desperation of someone at the end of their rope. It was the pessimism of those oppressed by their circumstances. Mr. Thad calmly talked with Maria, reminding her of the past, when he was a graduating student and she was starting in magic. He asked if she had ever heard of a genius named Thad. There had never been a genius by that name during his time at the academy. He too had a painful past, having been stuck in the 5th grade for 5 years. This experience had partly shaped his current personality, similar to Maria's, a negative, resentful outlook on everything. Fortunately, the principal had enlightened him, teaching him that a wizard should not compare themselves to others. It's simple, if you're running forward while looking at those around you, you're bound to lose your way. Speaking of losing one's way, someone else was in such a predicament. Mark, in his arrogance, had accidentally fallen into this trap. A single misstep could have been his end. Suddenly, a golden hand reached out and pulled him to safety in the nick of time. Despite Mark being his rival, Chiron chose to save him simply because they were fellow students. However, the traps were still plentiful. Chiron now had to navigate them while carrying the burden of Mark, making it even more difficult to move. Each calculation, and each step he took seemed to choke the air around him. The onlookers watched with bated breath. Witnessing Chiron's determination, a will not for victory but to become a true wizard, the principal decided to continue the test and will be responsible for his decisions. This was the moment for our protagonist to showcase his talent. He expanded his spirit zone, perceiving every detail of the deadly traps. The overlapping complexity required precise utilization of his abilities to navigate the twists and turns, inadvertently creating a complex skill, bending light. After surpassing countless traps, they faced their toughest challenge yet, the dragon's maze. The head of the dragon floated in midair, majestic and imposing. In an instant, it lunged at them. Yet Chiron, with his steadfast spirit, meticulously analyzed every detail and scenario to evade death. Every second he counted. His calculated, fluid movements helped both of them escape the jaws of death. The principal, observing Chiron, was deep in thought. Here was a young man who simply wanted to learn magic. Deep down, there was a tinge of envy for such pure talent. Finally, he decided to allow Chiron to advance a grade. Thus, the legend of a genius who overcame all odds and envy began. The unruly students, witnessing Chiron's prowess, humbly bowed before their seniors. Recognizing their sincerity, Chiron decided to let it go, albeit with a piercing glare. Then, turning to Amy, Chiron pointed at her and declared, "I kept my promise, didn't I? I will catch up to you." In truth, he was so exhausted that he lost control of his words. And that wraps it up for today. See you in the next part. Peace.